Welcome to Did You Hear That? Your source for the top stories from the Star Wars universe. I'm Pete Fletzer, and along with my co-host Nick Milkey, we'll break down the biggest headlines of the week and share our thoughts on everything happening in that galaxy far, far away. Don't forget, you can catch us live every Thursday evening on our weekly show, ATG Live, over on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@the-SSW Network. Join the conversation, hear from special guests, and get the latest news as it happens. And now, this week's... Well, interesting first story. Disney is facing a lawsuit over the use of Peter Cushing's likeness in Rogue One. I don't think anybody saw this one coming. In a developing story, London-based Tyburn Film Productions is suing Disney over the use of Peter Cushing's likeness in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. According to the Telegraph, Tyburn claims a contract made with Cushing before his death gave them the right to veto any recreations of his image through special effects. They argue Disney and Lucasfilm violated that agreement when Cushing's character Grand Moff Tarkin appeared in the 2016 film. Despite Disney securing approval from the Cushing estate, Tyburn maintains that its own contract with the actor dating back to 1977 takes precedence. The case will proceed to a full factual inquiry through a high court judge and has expressed doubts over the likelihood of success. This case comes amidst growing controversy over the use of visual effects and AI to recreate deceased actors, with similar scrutiny recently directed at Alien Romulus for its use of Ian Holmes' likeness. The issue is also central to the ongoing SAG-AFTRA negotiations, as the ethics of this practice continue to be debated across Hollywood. Nick, any thoughts on this one?
It's very fascinating, and I listened you sent me the story earlier this week and read through it. You know, it feels like what they said. You know, it seems unlikely that there's going to get, a whole lot out of this, but it's also interesting to think Peter Cushing was giving his likeness to somebody else in the 70s. Like, that's a very now thing to do, because we have hologram Tupacs that show up, or we have, whatever the thing is, but to have had that foresight feels a little fishy. Of course, I don't know all the details, but it does also bring up something that we have faced certainly several times in the Star Wars world, because we have not only Peter Cushing in Rogue One, but we have Carrie Fisher at the end. We know her family was involved. We have, and of course, Mark Hamill's still alive, but we have computer usages of Mark Hamill in Mandalorian. The one that feels very prescient right now is James Earl Jones died this week. And that voice is so iconic and central to a specific character. Now, there's been other actors, especially in animation. It hasn't been, this isn't an Anthony Daniels situation. It's not all James Earl Jones all the time. But also his estate has set up and has had an agreement for several years, if I understand correctly, with Lucasfilm, the ability to use that voice going forward for projects that may come up in ways that Darth Vader may be used. So it's a very modern thing, to have those agreements in place. It feels a little bit opportunistic from whoever this person is to also, because Rogue One has been out, 8 years, 9 years? So I don't know. I can't speak to all the facts because I don't have all of them, but reading it and just kind of giving it the smell test, as it were, something feels a little stinky in this one.
But it definitely raises the questions, because I think you look at, the whole Mark Hamill situation. Obviously, Mark Hamill's still alive and on set and doing it, being actively a part of those recreations. But it just it raises a bigger question, not just for Star Wars, but for the industry. And honestly, I don't know how I feel about. I used to be like, this is great. The technology is there. Let's use it. But we have to be prepared for walking away from those original actors for various reasons, and let it take on a new life, I think.
And I wondered, is this one different because it's somebody's face, where James Earl Jones is a voice with a masked character? Does that have, is that a different way we approach this? Because, they could go in and make a whole new Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia movie, make it digital. And that feels like, but if we're doing that, I see what you're saying, and I don't really have the words to articulate it properly. I feel like a voice is different than a face likeness. Like, we're passing off a computer
And I think it's different if the actor is alive, right? Like, so Robert Downey Jr. Being de-aged in the Iron Man movies,
or the active movies. Part of the project. Yeah, Mark Hamill, same thing.
Yeah, but again, if the permission's given by the estate, I guess you gotta run with it. So
different thing.
Well, luckily, we don't have to decide what happens there. So, but let's get to our next story. Let's see here. What do I have? I think I have it here. Sorry for the delay, folks. Obi-Wan Kenobi has gotten his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Ewan McGregor received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame today in a ceremony featuring longtime friends and collaborators Mike Mills and Hayden Christensen. In a recent interview with Variety's Todd Gilchrist, McGregor reflected on his illustrious career, acknowledging his iconic role as Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars as a major turning point. And while McGregor has celebrated his career beyond the galaxy far, far away, he expressed his fondness for the character and hinted at a possible return to Obi-Wan in future projects. He shared memories of working alongside Alec Guinness's legacy, expressing his joy in capturing moments that felt reminiscent of Guinness's portrayal. Christensen, reflecting on their friendship, also recalled meeting McGregor for the first time on set in Australia, describing the actor's mentorship and ability to keep focus on the emotional core of their scenes. McGregor ended the interview with gratitude, humbly remarking on the significance of receiving a star on the Walk of Fame and how it might inspire others in the industry who he feels deserving of the accolade. Interesting. We just were talking about Peter Cushing being replaced digitally. They obviously, Alec Guinness could never play a 18-year-old Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right.
But here's a situation where not only did it work, he is Obi-Wan Kenobi for many people. So Nick, any comments on that?
First, that was my immediate first thought. I watched Hayden's speech. Somebody put the clip of it, 5.5 minutes. He did a great job. Obviously, it's very clear that those two are friends, love each other dearly, and I admire that so much.
Yep.
But when I was watching that, and when he kind of transitions to the Star Wars part of it, and Hayden himself says, he is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you see Ewan McGregor light up, and you see him kind of, his chest puffs out with pride, and he beams a little bit. And I mean, you and I both grew up with Alec Guinness. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor wasn't a thing until 1999.
Right.
But if if I'm playing word association and you say Ewan McGregor, I'm right there at saying Obi-Wan Kenobi, right next to a couple of other just key things as an actor. I think on the Hollywood star part, he's absolutely deserving of this. He has done so many different things. My wife loves Moulin Rouge. It's one of her favorite movies. We watch it, at least once a year. One of my favorite movies of all time that he is in is a movie called Big Fish. If anybody is watching this podcast, if you've never seen the movie Big Fish, please go watch it. It's a Tim Burton movie. It's Ewan McGregor. It's Steve Buscemi.
And it's co-starring Nick Milky, isn't it?
And I am an extra in that movie. That's not why it's so great. It is truly a fantastic movie. And it was shot here in Alabama where I live. But it's such a fun story. It's really clever. It's very Tim Burton in such the best way. But there's also, if you've never watched it I think it's on Apple TV still, the Long Way series. Ewan McGregor and his best friend ride motorcycles literally around the world. And it's this real life reality. There's like 3 or 4 of them. They go from like South America to LA, on electric motorcycles is the newer one. They're apparently planning another season, which I'm pumped about. But it gives you insight into who he is as a human being, not just the actor.
Yeah.
And he's seems to be every bit as good a dude as we want him to be. Like you want to hang out with Ewan McGregor and have a beer and have him say, holy shit, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, like he does in that video of the guy at the stoplight. He's totally deserving, and the love between him and Hayden is beautiful. They're friends who went through a bunch of stuff making those movies and really connected. So couldn't be more deserving in my opinion.
Yeah. And it's interesting because again, we have now lived through, and I've been seeing a lot of memes of it lately because of the Accolade and things like that. We've gone through the prequels and we've gone through that sort of thing. And let's be honest, people did not love those movies. And that is probably part of the thing that brought them closer together. And I say they did not love those movies when they first came out. I know that the world has changed dramatically. I've clearly, I've come around and love those movies as well. But Ewan McGregor, it is funny.
Went through it together.
Correct. Right. So they've gone through that ringer, and they'll be sort of tied to that forever.
And they've gotten to come back around. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but like seeing the stuff at Celebration Europe that we didn't get to go to last year, the year before, Hayden being out on stage, we heard about it at Anaheim because Kenobi had come out, and Ewan comes out there then and says, we're doing this. He even said himself, I was turned off for a while, but the outpouring of fans that said, we want you back. We want more. Like, that's what brought him back to this and brought him back to this character. And you can tell everything that's happened since the first season of Kenobi came out. He's amped and totally down for it. If they called him tomorrow, he'd do it. And here's my hot take. If we're doing hot takes tonight, we get an Obi-Wan season 2 before we get an Acolyte, before we I think we're closer to that than we are anything else new. Like, I think that's in the works. That's my underlying theory.
You know what? I don't disagree with you at all. And I think it's more than possible. I think, again, it's very similar to anytime any one of these actors has said, no, I'd be open to it, but nothing's happening. I think they'll get there. And I think, honestly,
and I think what we've seen lately with the Acolyte, which was brand new content all the way around. An era nobody really know. I mean, an era not a lot of people really. Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, that character, that actor is the great equalizer. It's the one that, even if you didn't super love the first Obi-Wan Kenobi series, it has the ability to be the most accessible, user-friendly, money-making opportunity for Disney Star Wars to say, this is where we're going to direct some dollars, and it's going to get, everything gets crapped on. It doesn't matter what it is. You can make the most perfect, Quentin Tarantino murder stormtrooper movie that everybody thinks they want. There's still going to be something wrong with it, and nobody wants that. But my point is, I think this has, the potential for a second Obi-Wan Kenobi series is the safest money that I think Disney could spend here in a not too distant future.
I would love to see it, and clearly he's up for it. So, well, speaking of series, let's get to our last news story of the night, and that is that Ahsoka won its first Emmy. The Star Wars series Ahsoka secured its first Emmy win at the Creative Arts Emmy Awards on Sunday, taking home the award for Outstanding Fantasy Sci-Fi Costumes. The award was specifically given for the episode Part 8, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord, a fan favorite installment of the 2023 Disney Plus series. The award, however, is bittersweet, as it was awarded posthumously to Shawna Trpcic, who sadly passed away last year. The competition for the costume design honor was fierce, with Ahsoka beating out nominees Echo for Lowhawk, Fallout for The End, Loki for 1893, and What We Do in the Shadows for Pride Parade. In addition to this win, Ahsoka earned 5 total nominations at the event, including nods for Outstanding Special Visual Effects, Outstanding Hairstyle, Outstanding Prosthetic Makeup, and Outstanding Sound Editing. Though it didn't win in these categories, the recognition highlights the show's excellence in technical achievements and creativity. The victory adds to the growing legacy of this show. We've talked about it before, Nick, when our favorite TV shows have gotten Emmy appreciation, Emmy nods, Emmy awards. And what does it all mean? And I think the timing is important because of where Disney Star Wars on television is right now. I think there's often an issue where we talk about the quality of the shows, and this is, the Emmys are not, it's not fan based. It's not, it's people, especially especially in this creative category, right? These are their fellow creatives making this sort of recognition. Nick, what does it mean for not just Ahsoka and, of course, Shawna Trpcic, who will be greatly missed? I mean, the Ahsoka costuming was amazing. The detail, the way she captured some of the classic animated pieces. But Nick, what do you think this means, especially at this time in quote unquote Disney Star Wars?
Recognition is a good thing. I mean, to see, you're pushing shows, you're spending money to create shows. You still have to test things out. You still have to figure out which shows work, which shows don't work, which shows did we spend a lot of money on that didn't get the views. Doesn't mean they're a bad show. Doesn't mean it's bad content. It means this is a business, and this means that when we spend this money, where do we get recognition?
Yep.
If Disney's getting recognition, even in technical things like costuming and hair and makeup and effects, that gets attention, and that gets attention from the people who have control of the purse strings. So I think that it bodes well for when a conversation is had about, are we really going to do a second season of Ahsoka? There's going to be somebody, and there's going to be a plus in the pro and con category that says, we did get some awards, we did get some nominations, and they're deserving too. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, sure. Yep.
But, and you talked about Shawna, you know, she's worked on multiple Star Wars shows over the years. She worked on Kenobi. I'm pretty sure she did the stuff for Andor, and the costumes in Andor in particular. You've got Mon Mothma in, you know, not Bespin, Coruscant, you know, political finery, and hosting a thing at, like, the costumes are as important to Star Wars as the John Williams music is, as the Ben Burtt sound effects are, because it's not believable if you're wearing big shoulder pads and you look like David Hasselhoff in that one weird movie from the 80s. You know, it's got to be believable, and it's that lived in thing. And, you know, that craft being recognized is important. So I think it's all wins, and I think it bodes well for when they make decisions about what shows are they going to do. They're going to focus on who are our good creators, who are our good, you know, people that drive this.
Yeah. Yep. No, and I think you're right. And I also think it's important to recognize that they're putting that same sort of effort into television that they do in the movies. Thanks for tuning in to Did You Hear That? Remember, you can join us live every Thursday evening on YouTube at youtube.com/@the SSW Network for all the latest Star Wars news and conversations with special guests. This podcast stream is also home to Around the Galaxy, the weekly Star Wars interview show where we talk to the people behind the Star Wars fandom. Don't forget to connect with us on socials. Find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at the SSW Network, and on Facebook at facebook.com/the SSW Network. You can also support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/the SSW Network, or leave us a voicemail at 504-321-1501. That's 504-321-1501. Don't miss out on the excitement, and we'll see you next time Around the Galaxy. This podcast is copyright 2024 Pete and the Seed Studios, and our music is by the band Apollo's Ghost.